So, okay, this is going to be, I guess it should seem like a fine video. It's probably going to be posted on 2 channels, but I've been asked by Steve from Key West Kayak Fishing to put together a video basically going through the way I would sort of put my videos together, and yeah, I think it's going to sit into his playlist of how to sort of make a better YouTube channel or fishing specific YouTube channel. So hopefully I can sort of put something together that sort of makes sense, and it's sort of a nice offer from him. I've only got a very small following so far, and I'm hoping to sort of grow that, but it's sort of a nice offer. Hopefully I can sort of come up with the goods and it'll go well on both channels and we can sort of make something of it. So thanks, Steve, thank you for the offer, and thank you. I'm going to hopefully put a good video together. I wasn't 100% sure how to go about it at first, and then I thought, well, I guess there's no better way to do it than just actually just start filming a video and just sort of piece it together as I go. And then there's a comp, the Blitz this weekend, so I thought, well, that's a great opportunity to sort of get some good footage, and hopefully it'll actually make it nice and easy for me to just sort of give you a look at sort of what I'd be looking for, how I go about it, and then hopefully by the end of this film we'll actually have a pretty good sort of video that you can actually just watch and see sort of how it all came together in the end. I guess so. We'll start up the top with cameras. I basically use Hero 3 Plus Silver Pluses. The reason I use these is it's the first GoPro that sort of came in the silver level instead of the black level that actually has 60 frames per second at 1080p. Now I like to shoot everything I do in 1080p at 60 frames per second because it means that if there's a chance that any of that footage is good and is good for a slow-mo, I can slow it down. If you're shooting at 30 frames per second, it really limits sort of what you can do with the footage, and if you do try and slow something down, it gets real jerky and it just doesn't work. So 60 frames per second was the sweet number. It's the sort of a good all-rounder, and 1080p, like the difference between say 720 and 1080, it really is quite huge. And I know, I'm sure a lot of guys that vlog and things are using a much higher than that. They're using like 4000K or things like that or whatever. I really don't have the camera capabilities or the memory to sort of go any higher at this stage, but you know, later on down the track maybe. So then we move on to the Hero 5 Black. Yeah, where's a good shot of that? The Hero 5 Black is what I've got on the PFD now. That's where all my sound comes from when I'm talking on camera on the kayak. So it all comes from the mics here. So sound isn't great, but it's good enough for what I use it for, and because it's so close to my mouth, that's why sometimes you hear me and I'm like huffing and puffing, but I'm actually just breathing normally. But the mic is so close to my mouth just to get that sound working properly that makes me sound like I'm out of breath. That's also set at 60 frames per second at 1080p. This can go higher, but then it's just chewing through memory, and yeah, like I said, I don't really need it much higher than that. I've got the Troll camera, which is the Water Wolf. I won't show that because it's already attached to a rod and couldn't be bothered pulling it off, but yeah, standard deal. If you look it up online, you'll find the Water Wolf. I think mine was the 1.0, so it's the first one they came out with. Frame rate is shocking on those things, but when it's underwater, for some reason you can get away with it. As soon as you take it out of the water and try and use it as a normal camera, it's pretty much useless. But the good thing about it is, because the quality's low and the frame rate's low, it doesn't chew much memory and it keeps the battery life going. So those things will last maybe 4 hours, which is pretty good for that kind of camera. And there's not many other cameras out there that'll go for 4 hours. And then I use the iPhone 7 now, which is what I'm filming on now, so I don't have it down there. Previously I had the iPhone 6, which did a pretty good job, but it was nowhere near as good at low light. And it wasn't waterproof, so I needed one of these cases, which was the Optrix case. So Optrix case is actually a pretty good case. It's probably going to be sort of obsolete soon because all the phones are coming out with waterproofing built in. So not much point of the case. I guess maybe it makes it a lot more rugged though, so that's pretty cool. But iPhone 7 seems to be doing a really good job, sound-wise, lighting-wise, everything. It's just that little bit better, and it's actually making it sort of viable to shoot like things like vlog and everything else I do. It's a pretty viable camera to use for most of the stuff I do, apart from the GoPros. Then we move on to how I get these cameras to run continuously for that long. So basically, the Heroes, I'll run them down. So these have a battery backpack. So I've written Kingma because that's one of the brands, but this one's actually a Wasabi as well. See if we can get it to focus. So that backpack is enough juice. When I'm running these at 60 frames per second at 1080p, I can run these cameras for, let's say, 5.5 hours. So that's pretty good for a GoPro. Not many GoPros are getting that kind of lifespan or battery lifespan. So these batteries, you can get them cheap off sites like Deal Extreme. They're a little harder to get to in Australia, but easy to get in, I think, overseas, and they just keep these things going. That's another reason why I use the Hero 3 Pluses, because the backpacks still attach, whereas as soon as you move to the 4s or the 5s, you can't put the backpacks on, which sucks, because it's basically useless to me if I have to keep turning the camera on and off, because you just can't film the way I want to without lots of juice and having the cameras running non-stop. Alright, so memory cards, because they're running non-stop, they're going to need lots of memory. So I use 64GB cards, and they basically keep it going for 5.5 hours as well. The battery actually, like the card runs out before my battery, so the battery actually probably would go for 6.5 hours if I could pump in more memory. 64 cards aren't cheap really, so it's just more and more money to spend. So I get most of my trips, say, are in the morning before work. 5.5 hours is pretty good. They run longer than most of my trips. Okay, so once the GoPros are ready and loaded up, one goes at the front here. The front camera is really good because it looks back. It's not too far forward here, so I look tiny, but it's just far enough back to get the rod tips. So because it's rolling all the time, I get the hit of the fish. So that's sort of always a highlight. So getting the hit and seeing that rod buckle over is always good. The second one, well, I have one on the chest on the PFD. I just clip it on like that. It's tethered because I know I've almost lost a couple of cameras by dropping them over the side when I unclip them. So that one goes on here, and then it's just on a clip that I can easily just pop off and sort of stick in the water if I want to get some underwater footage. And then this one, this is probably the fancier one. And this one actually, it was a railblazer pole, but then it broke in the surf, and then the sort of telescopic slide kept coming off and gumming up, so that was no good. So I've basically made my own pole out of parts of the railblazer pole and parts of an old ram mount I had. I think this one works a lot better than either the ram mount and the railblazer pole. So big companies, take note. Because seriously, like the railblazer pole definitely had its problems, but I do like the HD mount and the way it sort of attaches. The ram mount up the top is way better than the railblazer platform it had. The platform was sort of a bit dicky and way too big for the GoPro, maybe good for other cameras, but and it really didn't manipulate like in all directions. It basically could only slide around. You could get around that by moving the other parts of the pole, but it was sort of silly when you could have like a fully tilted end here. And this was also another thing that sort of gets me with the railblazer pole, is here it's attached and you can't just automatically lift it. I guess the weight of the pole would sort of make it hard to get that perfect balance of hold, and then you say if you're bouncing around on waves, I guess it would come down, so I guess it has to lock into place. But you'd like to think there was a slightly better solution, but I'm not sure what that is. So this pole is cool. It basically, I can bring it straight up to get like a facing down shot, or I can bring it out, which is a shot I definitely favour, and then I can swing it back in. I've got a little clip here, clips into place. I lock it up for going back through the surf, and that's how I get a nice shot of the back of the kayak coming in and out of the surf, and I don't actually have to detach this and put it in the hull. And that's sort of a bit of a game changer as well, because it's just another angle. I guess coming up with a pole like that can do like maybe 4 or 5 different angles and sort of bring it all together without having to sort of unplug, or because when you're out on the water you really don't have time to sort of muck around with it, and the last thing you want to do is stop your fishing just to muck around with a camera pole. So this one sort of serves quite a lot of purposes and gives me a whole stack of angles with very little mucking around. Also have a whole stack of other mounts that I've used in the past and still sort of use here and there. I've got like a camping pole which I made into a mount, which comes out to like almost 2.5 meters. That gives a really cool down shot. And then mounts like that, they've clipped onto the rod, sort of looking up and down the rod. That's really cool to get some cool screaming drag footage. And then what else? Wrist mounts, that sort of was a bit of a failed attempt. It worked half the time, but it's a bit too shaky when you're winding and things like that. But yeah, I've gone for, you know, like half of these are just like cheap off eBay and things like that. And they've all served their purpose at a time, but the ones on the Kayak are the ones I really regularly use now, and I sort of don't really use these much at all. Okay, so then I guess we move on to the editing. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit all my films. It's just that sort of just a little bit more professional than other things like iMovie. But that's not to say like in my first couple of movies, or maybe the first 10 or so, I did in iMovie, and I can actually get a pretty good result with it. But you know, Premiere does really have, you know, all those pro kind of features, and it sort of helps me sort of manipulate things just a little bit quicker and a little bit better. And when you get home, you end up with heaps of footage, especially with the cameras running all the time. So you've got to sort of find a way to cut the footage down really quickly. So before you even hit the proper editing suite, you've just got to go through and cut it all down and just chop good bits out and then dump the rest, because otherwise you'll end up with a full hard drive very quickly. So I just use, I cut down with QuickTime. It sort of comes free with the Mac, and it's really quick to trim down footage and just save it off real fast. And then I save it off to a hard drive, and then once it's all on the hard drive, then I'll put it into a folder where I know sort of they're my real working pieces, and then I'll start editing from there. Music. Well, music is one of those things I really wish I could tell you, you know, there's some kind of like magic bullet, but it really is just a matter of plowing through endless songs. I just listen to it like as if I'm listening to a radio, and just go through song after song, and when I find something that sort of inspires me or I think will really fit well with what I'm putting together, then I'll, you know, approach the person and ask nicely and see if they sort of respond well. Sometimes it's already on free download, sometimes you find it on Free Music Archive or something like that, which helps, but you do often run into problems with copyright, and so it's just a matter of sort of approaching the person and getting, you know, the right sort of approval. I'm guessing this is going to be a spotty. Alright, the wind's playing ball, which is nice. We might actually get a fish in after all. It's looking pretty bleak for a second. What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? I think it's spotty. I think, yeah. Oh, shit. Oh, sharp gaff. Okay, so the wind, so I didn't actually explain the comp, but this comp is actually, it's a race. So the first out, catch a pelagic, there's maybe 5 species on the list, and then first back in. I think Gary has already won it because he claimed that he caught a fish and he was on his way in, but I haven't heard anyone else talk about it yet. So hopefully it might be a second in it for me. But I guess I better get a move on then, because let's not lose this fish. Get a move on. So I think we'll just pack the rods up straight up, lighten the load, no mucking around, eh? Let's get this off. Do we leave a line out? I think we just get it in. Oh, got no bloody bait on that one. Alright, so Gary really did catch a fish. So there's my pole, we can lock that in. Normally I wouldn't lock it in this early, but we're just going straight in now, so let's just lock that in now. Always important to do this strap up. I've definitely lost, I think I lost my pole last time. This one's tethered, so we should be good. Alright, let's do this. See what speeds we can crack on the way in, eh? Got a nice in, sort of semi-downwind, at least with the swell, so it shouldn't take long. Yeah, look, not really paddling that hard yet, and we're already travelling 8.7, oh, 9. Alright. We'll be able to ride this in very quickly. And then we'll have to tackle the surf, see if it's kinder to me on the way in than it was on the way out, because it was not kind on the way out. That's one of the worst launches I've had for a while. I've had worse, but it's definitely up there. Oh, now we're cooking. 13 k's, 14 k's. So nice to get a little bit of help by that.
Yeah.